Mm,
Hey, we're live. You
yay.
ready, sober gang? Hi, everyone. We went right up. Take this time as you come in and share it with your friends in the alumni community of Avenues and beyond. Tonight's guest is Justin Calloway from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's the director of Road to Recovery, Indiana. He's also on the mayor's task force, opioid crisis task force at Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we're really glad to have him tonight. Thank you for coming, Justin. So
Appreciate you,
we're going to give you 30 seconds and we'll be back up and we'll review the steps and we're going to meet Justin. All right, we're back. Guys, I'd like to thank you for coming this evening for our 8-week step workshop. This is the first week. The last 2 weeks, we've been inviting people outside of the Avenues community that are our friends in recovery because it's much larger than that. And we get a chance to hear their experiences with working the steps and achieving long-term sobriety. As of Monday, Justin celebrated 12 years of long-term recovery and has made a huge impact on his community, and we'll get to meet him shortly. But a few announcements. If anyone's experiencing an emergency that came on here tonight for help, please dial 911 immediately. If you need our help this evening, feel free to contact us through the 800 number or our website. One quick plug, Hammock Readings is back up. We had a little changeover, but they started up 3 days ago. Please stop by Facebook, YouTube, or avenuesrecovery.com. Sign up for our email list. We can send you these every morning. What they are is 1 to 3 minute videos to start the day with an intention, prayer, or meditation from all different cultures and thoughts and concepts that are based on having a spiritual awakening, being present. It's a good way to restart your day as well. We'll be shooting the new season, spring season, Friday in Pennsylvania. So that'll be exciting. Let's do a quick review of where we're at, because tonight we're on steps 6 and 7. And Justin and I were joking in our digital green room before we came on. It's not a step that takes up an hour meeting a lot of times, and you don't hear a lot of ideas on it. And I think we could get to that shortly, but let's remember what we did. If you're working the steps now, you got to step 1. Step 1 is kind of bracing. It could be the worst day of your life, acknowledging this, but the action of it is despair. It's drinking, it's use, until you have collapse or a moment of clarity where you realize you can't do anything about this yourself. You've marshaled all your resources towards it, or you're not willing to take the risk, because we know substance use disorder is fatal, it's progressive, and it only gets worse. So making this acknowledgement, and it kind of transitions right into step 2 to this position, I may be insane. Logic alone won't keep me sober. Because if that was true and it was just a physical addiction, I could leave detox in 6 days and I'll have permanent recovery. My rational mind would take over. My frontal lobe. Boy, Joe, that was scary. Don't do that again. But that isn't the problem I have. It took 11 rehabs to come to, a consensus. Maybe I'm insane. And that insanity is very distinct. It's not a diagnosis. It's, I don't know true from false when it comes to receiving help and how much help I need. And in 12-step life, we're talking about the help in the position of calling it an awakening. And it's not cliche and it's not cheap. It's one thing to understand the steps, but we need to experience them to know how awake we can become. And that's what we're signing up for on step 2. I want this kind of help. I'm willing to go a little further. And we saw AA has even a prayer for that. It's fairly secular. We ask for his protection and care with complete abandon. We read it at a lot of meetings. That's second step prayer. We transition it right over to step 3. Step 3, procedurally, let's take away the spiritual mist from it and say, what are you actually doing? You're committing with another person or by yourself that you're going to work the rest of the steps. And you turn my will and life over the care of God or a higher power. I was secular, but I wanted to do it the way my sponsor was asking me. So when I did this, it's an acknowledgement that I'm going to start step 4. That's the real decision, the actions in step 4. So you could do one of two things. You could work the first 3 steps until you either drink or you have a spiritual awakening. You go all the way. We saw what step 4 was in multiple ways and how you can write it and trusting the sponsor to go through the process. Maybe the way they did it was a little different. Doesn't matter. Do it. Trust someone and do it. From NA to AA. Step 5, we find someone or more people to start talking about this 4th step. Then we also talked about really distinct scenarios of things that might not have been on your 4th step that you're hedging. This is another time. Maybe you could trust someone else with those things, but don't balk at this. Don't do it halfway, because it says half measures get us not half, they get us nothing. And I believe that. So we just had this Herculean thing. We had a long discussion with one or multiple people, and we may have told them things we've never told anyone. And for a lot of people I meet in old AA, this might be the first time they've ever made a friend. And the loneliness that they've felt most of their life starts to dissipate immediately because someone knows who they are before they die. And what is addiction? It's pain. It's unresolved pain. And now it's starting to get resolved, and we're going into step 6 and 7. And, you know, in AA, it says we're going to take an hour and say, whoa, what did I just do? And these are the character defects. And Justin has experience with this. I'm very excited that he's here. And I always love meeting an agent of change in Fort Wayne and the impact you're having there. Thank you for your time and coming on. Justin, tell us a little bit about who you are and what steps 6 and 7 meant to you.
Thank you. Actually, a little bit about who I am. So I was born and raised here in Indiana, and I started getting bullied at a young age because of the neighborhood that I lived in, and because of this, long story short, I ended up joining a gang myself at a very young age. So, and I learned that alcohol can make me become that character, because that's what I was, a character. It made my character become way more potent, way more easy to become. And so alcohol can then consume my life. When it comes to 6 and 7, I had nothing. I had no idea about recovery, right? And no clue besides what somebody would mention it on a TV show or something like that. So I thought that when I moved into this sober living home, that they were going to teach me how not to drink, but I was going to go back out there and live the life that I lived before. I was going to go right back out to gang banging. I was in the sober living home with my blue flags and still banging my hats and stuff like that. Thought I was going to continue to live that type of lifestyle. Now, for me, 6 and 7, like you said before, it's extremely important to look at 4, because I had to find out what my character defects were, because I thought it was just the drinking. I thought that was my only problem, was my drinking. So once I looked at step 4 and said, oh shit, oh damn, oh hell no, oh, this is the person that I am, man. And I didn't want to be honest all the way, because to be honest, I did some extremely crazy stuff, just like a lot of us have. And so I didn't want to be honest. And my sponsor looked at me and he said, listen, he said, just turn it over to your higher power and put trust in him. That's why we did those first 3 steps. So you can now go ahead and tell me and have trust, because it was hard for me to trust. I come from the gang life. I don't trust nobody. I don't trust nobody, especially with my secrets. And one of my biggest secrets was I was a coward. I was afraid. And I learned that. So once I started to realize these things, I was ready. I was ready to have God remove these defects of character. Now, for me, I grew up believing in the higher power. So, you know, I pray, even though I was drinking and out there causing havoc, I still prayed every night, which is absolutely hilarious because I was living a certain type of lifestyle that, you know. So when I was seriously ready to ask, and that's why a lot of times people will tell you, I'm sure your sponsors say, hit your knees, right? Why do we hit our knees when we ask him to remove these shortcomings? Is because we are surrendering at that point in time. Now, for those who've been in the streets, I know when you've had a gun pointed at you by the police, what do they say? Get on your knees. Why? Because you're surrendering to the police and you're becoming vulnerable to them so you can't hurt them. So that's what we do to our higher power. We get on our knees and we ask and we surrender. I'm vulnerable to you. Please remove these things from me so I can be better. Now here's the good part about this, especially for people that are new in sobriety. Progress, not perfection, right? We want to remove all of our shortcomings. We want to get rid of them. We want to be done and complete with them. But guess what? They're still going to be within inside of us. Why? Because we're human beings. We're still going to have shortcomings. We will always fall short of perfection. So, what these steps will do is help us realize our shortcomings. And when we will get, you go later down into those steps. When we're wrong, we promptly admit it. But see, that's the whole point of 6 and 7 is to recognize that we don't want to be that person anymore. That we want you to take away these things from us, that we no longer want to be some of us violent, some of us liars, some of us deceiving, adulterers, all these things. We don't want to be those people anymore. We want to be a new creature. And so it's important for us to have trust in that higher power when, hey, after 1 through 3, those are all, like you said, decisions. 3 frogs on a log. One made a decision to jump. How many frogs are on the log? Still 3 fucking frogs. Because he only made a decision. He didn't put in action. So now that we realize step 4, you know, we realize what our defects of character are. 5, we admitted, hey, we admitted we have these character defects. Now we're ready to change who we are, become anew. And that's what recovery is, man. Recovery is not perfection. Recovering is aiming to be better. And how do you aim to be better? Just change the things that used to baffle us. Things that used to baffle us. My sponsor told me when I didn't know I had a character defects. I was very abusive to my I said I would never put my hands on a woman. Never. I would never do that. I would never be abusive. Why would I have to admit that I was abusive? He said, "But did you verbally abuse them when you were drinking? Did you verbally do this?" Fuck. Yeah. Yeah, I did. And I didn't want to hurt anybody anymore. And that's all it was the pain that I took and was given to me as that young kid. And I realized that pain I wanted to put on other people because that's how I felt. And so I asked God, I said, please don't let me be this person anymore. I don't want to be that. And I want to help people. And so that's why today I am the director of a sober living home because I got sober at a sober living home, and so I had to give back what was given to me. And I continue to do that today. And these steps are the ones that help guide me and get through that. So yeah, 6, I mean, that's it.
Mike, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
is it? Did you see a large presence entering recovery from gang life? Fort Wayne, did someone? No.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, if you want me to be 1,000% honest, and I don't notice here in Fort Wayne,
Yeah.
Indiana, it's there's not a lot of minorities.
Yeah.
Period. Not a lot of minorities in recovery, especially in the gang. The gang life is a whole different
Yeah.
beast. Because asking or saying you're wrong is looked at as weakness. Is looked at as being, weak. And so when you go to your brother, if I go to one of my OGs back then and be like, bro, I'm feeling sad today.
I've been to Fort
Oh,
Wayne.
I think I need a hug, bro.
Yeah. It,
Nah, I'm probably getting my ass whooped by my own boys and stuff like that. So no, it definitely was. Uh, it was a surprise when my friends eventually would see me on the streets.
yeah.
Because I was, like I said, I was new. I was a new person.
I was curious about that just out of my own curiosity because I've
Yeah.
been to Fort Wayne and it looks like Scranton, but with no humor. Nobody's laughing.
No, it, not at all. It's very serious around here.
I want to talk to you about step 6 and 7. We're talking about them tonight, but like as always, it's really hard to speak and isolate steps sometimes. So you have this process with your sponsor. You ended up trusting them.
Yeah.
And I trusted my sponsor and I did the 5th step. And it was hard because there was stuff I wasn't sure if I was going all the way. I was scared. I wanted to get better, but I was terrified of
Right.
really confronting the reality I haven't told anyone else.
Right.
You go through this. Did you take it like some time after that and just let things settle? Like an hour. I couldn't get through an hour myself. It was 30 minutes. I'm sitting in a chair and I'm getting anxious. I felt good, but I'm just an
Right.
anxious guy. I didn't know how to sit for an hour. Did you
Yeah.
experience anything like that?
No, I did. I did. It was almost the best way I could describe it was almost kind of like a shell shock
Yeah.
that I just went through this process.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was like a spiritual awakening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It is. You are waking up because here's what we just woke up. I like the 7th step prayer. It says, my creator, you now can, in AA, you can now have me good and bad. And that's what
Yep.
I changed it to acceptance. What was your feeling of the sense of shame maybe that you felt with the things you talked about? What was there a transition over the next couple of weeks after that 5th step that was part of 6 and 7? Did an identity kind of, were you okay and accept it? I've done good and I've done bad.
No. Not at first.
Not at first. Yeah.
Not at first. No. I mean, literally, and I rarely talk. I think I've named a few of the things twice, but I was
Yeah. Yeah.
extremely violent. Um, I cause pain, man. And even today, I have forgiven myself,
Yeah.
right? But this is what's so beautiful about recovery is that when I think about the pain that I caused, it still hurts, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we move on and we release it, but it's always going to be there. And sometimes it's a good pain to have. I have feelings today.
Yeah.
I have emotions today. But at first, those first few months, I still didn't want to accept. I didn't forgive myself when I first did that. I beat myself up, you know, and then eventually continually to work through the steps, and then continue to work with other people. Forgiveness started to creep in, you know.
Yeah. There's something there. And I kind of, if you don't mind, I'd like to stay on
Oh,
it because
yeah,
step 7 is this first time we've done some actions and it's now demanding us to use imagination in this realm. What are our new ideals moving forward? There's a question in the book that asks that, and that comes between 6 and 7. And I know that's been answered for you, but it seemed to evolve. It was like an emergence because, I mean, the impact you're having on people came from that pain. It's a transition. You transitioned it. Explain that to me. Explain how that started to open your imagination of where you can fit in. What's your role in recovery?
yeah, and so when I was in the gang, I was actually a lieutenant, which was a high-ranking member. Um, and I've always had it's weird. I've always had a connection with people, right? And even as I was doing wrong, I still wanted to be a good person for them, right? Which was weird. So in recovery, I looked at myself when I was out there using and doing that. I was a cancer to society. So now I had to become a medicine. Now I am not the solution at all, right?
Yeah,
Only you hold your solution. But I can be somebody that can write a prescription, you know. Hey, maybe I should suggest you do this and do this. And this is, this is the path that I took. And if that helps you, so I just have to continue to be a leader, you
yeah,
know, and how I do that is by continuing to walk a righteous path. Try to walk a righteous
sure,
path.
sure.
And that's all I can do today, But ooh, it wasn't an easy path.
No,
It
no,
wasn't an
I'm
easy.
sure it wasn't. And, but it's an adventurous path. It's exciting. You knew how addiction ended for you, and you've stated that. We don't know how sobriety or recovery ends. That's the adventure.
Whoa, that's deep.
Well, I'm
That's
strapped
deep.
into my
Yeah.
chair.
Look at that.
I'm talking to you tonight on a Wednesday night. Justin Calloway from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm Joe
Right.
Weirdo Van Wee from Scranton. Avenues brought us together to
Right.
share this message. They're not too far off. We carry this bag of bones and shame with us. You
Yeah.
start to relieve it. Step 5. It's a real action after I wrote. You write this. 6 and 7, I've always, it's an introduction to step 11. This
It is.
hour. And however that evolves for people is their own path. It could be yoga. It could be formal meditation, breathing exercises, but a practice that happens often so we can acknowledge that, there's a werewolf in us.
Yeah.
in you and
Yeah.
me. And
Yes.
I see you doing that. I feel I didn't know it at the time, but that was my introduction to what I would want to try to begin as a meditation.
Right.
Yeah. It's strange. The steps are constantly tricking you into something.
They really are, man. They really are. They're always so it's like kind of with my spirituality. My spirituality has changed.
Yeah.
It's still the same of belief in a sense from when I was a kid, but it's a different belief today. And the steps did that.
Yeah.
It's more and it's kind of so and listen, I don't care what anybody is. This is just my
Yeah.
personal
Well,
thing.
sure.
So one of my favorite stories in the Bible now is, and I didn't really know it. I grew up just listening to the regular stuff from Saul to Paul. So Saul used to persecute and kill Christians and
Yeah.
hate everybody that was around him, and then he became Paul, which came to be one of the most profound, one of God's profound writers. And to me, that's what recovery did for me. It took this person and it was a cocoon and
Yeah.
made me a whole new creature, man.
I,
It
I'm
I had
glad
no
you're
intention on doing that. It tricked
no.
me.
Yeah. Metamorphosis, an awakening. So if you're going to wake up and, you point to a historic example, Saul to Paul, and let's take the lens all the way back. This has been happening long before the 12 steps.
Right.
And my sponsor would always say to me, Justin, we're going to have a spiritual awakening the hard way. Like it's numbered. It looks easy, but there's some effort. And so what are we waking up to? This fact that you woke up to yourself, the fact I had to wake up. It wasn't that the world cheated me.
Right.
It's just I got hurt and I'm now on pause. My only way to deal with the pain's addiction. And some of us got hurt so bad. This is what I'm going to share with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually beautiful. You know, the, our pain can be such an uplifter. Just here of recently, I found out like I wasn't feeling too good. Um, I was always tired, this and that. I was like, I know I do a lot, but I just felt real bad. Ended up going to the hospital, right? Coming to find out I'm a diabetic. Okay. Most people will be like, oh damn, this and that. Man, I was like, okay, I want to get healthier. So
Yeah.
guess what? This is a key opportunity for me to make sure this is now life or death, just like my alcoholism, right? Now I can move forward. I see my problem and I can help it. So now I'm down 20 pounds. My my numbers are extremely mad, crazy, wonderful. That pain has now turned into a positive thing.
Yeah.
Who would
Yeah.
have known? But if I would have found that out when I was drinking, it would have been a death sentence.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I got diabetes. Let me drink some more sugar water."
Yeah.
You know? Wow.
Wow. Guys, get some questions for Justin or myself.
Yeah. Bring them.
And you don't have to stick them to steps 6 and 7. Let's give a shout out to Recovery Mike. He's on the switch tonight.
That's my
Rocky
dude.
from Delaware. Michael picked some of the questions and we'll put them up. But we're going to keep rapping because there's an idea there of awakening and this metamorphosis. Now, the awakening has to happen in reality. We're not talking about anything spooky.
Right.
Addiction and the trauma and detachment and prior conditions of, our own anxiety and depression that can manifest as an addiction to treat all this stuff is now being confronted. Steps 4 and 5. We're taking this hour to consider that these are the defects of character. Some people like to just say, I want to keep it simple and keep it on 4: resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear. Other people enjoy some versions from the 12 and 12 that go into the idea of the 7 deadly sins and want to put a little more detail and complexity on it. Whatever spins your own wheel.
Yeah. And actually, and not, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No.
Actually, and that's how when I go through the steps with my sponsees, I use the 12 and 12.
Yeah.
Because that thing is deep.
Yeah. It's a little more expansive, and it's 20 years of thought now. He wrote it in the 50s. Bill wrote the 12 and 12. It's like a consideration. What happened to me? And it worked. It still was working after 20 years.
Yeah.
So, this is the midpoint of the initial awakening, and we're seeing the fire. We see the fire. We commit it. We're owning it. We're owning our part. We may have been harmed to no fault of our own in some parts of our story, but now we're putting that in its own box. What are we going to be responsible for? Because addiction, if it's not your fault, it's this emergence of how you respond to the world and reality. When does it become our responsibility? It's when we wake up, and you have to wake up, and this is how you have power. And this is the turning point. As Justin said, you got power.
Yep.
You're 12 years sober now in Fort Wayne, making an impact in your community. Did you ever think that was going to happen after that 5th step? What did you think was good? What road were you going down?
No. I literally still at this point when I'm working the steps, I still think I'm going down the gang banging road. Literally. That's still the road I thought I was going on. I'm like, all right, this is gonna help me stop drinking and blah. And then, as I'm starting to be like, well, maybe that's the road I'm gonna continue. I still had no clue. I had no idea where I was headed to. Like, no clue. The best way to describe, I felt like a toddler. Like after starting to work these steps, I felt like a toddler.
That's funny. A lot of spiritual books after this dumping of just what was with us from life, experience, earth, comes out. What's left in a spiritual awakening, people try to talk about the details, is an adolescence, an infancy, and the morality of a child starts to be there. And it's like a weird period in the spiritual awakening where you feel you might have returned to your morals of youth, where you haven't made them more complex and weird, right?
Because I was 30 years old when I got sober, and I started I joined a gang when I was 14, 15.
14. Yeah, wow.
So that whole time, I had to grow up faster than what I intended to. So now that I'm starting to become Justin again and knocking that character off, I'm like, oh, I can be whatever I want now. I can be me.
You
and not have to care.
The individual. 14, you join a pack. It's real. There was a question up there. Jennifer has a question for you. Justin, what is a healthy coping mechanism you use that you can share when it comes to some of the harder days?
So for me, it's spirituality, right? So definitely saying my serenity prayer over and over again. Um, Talking to another person and getting out of self, right? What
Yeah.
does that mean? If I'm having a bad day, um, and I even coming home with my wife, I'll do the dishes for her, because that's me getting out of me. And it's thinking about somebody else. And then when I come and she comes home and she sees the dishes done, she's like, ooh, then that brings me out of that funk. You know what I'm saying? Or if I'll sometimes go back to the office and talk to one of the guys that
Yeah.
I know is having a bad day, right? Because let me be honest, they're struggling way worse with their bad days than I am with mine because I have that little bit of more of a foundation than they do, right? So just getting out of self
Self.
for me is one of the biggest things that help me cope. And if I also recognize that somebody has way worse than I do, I mean, it's kind of like how can you complain?
Yeah.
How can you be in
No.
that funk and and also playing that tape forward and like I'm having a bad day. If I take a drink, what's gonna happen? Shit's gonna get real. Shit's
Yeah.
gonna get
Well,
you know.
and long-term sobriety creates new connections in the brain, even after 90 days. And what
Yeah,
that is, it's not just like a cheap statement. What's happening is you have more access to the logical part of your brain. That addiction really smothered. We're
yeah,
stuck. We're trapped. I like that you mentioned your wife. I'm married,
yeah.
and that's where the litmus test for me is of how sober is Joe today? Did I wash dishes? And you're gonna get me in trouble because if she watches this, she's like, "See, Justin's washing dishes." Um, but my sponsor always says that. I teach the steps at work. You teach them, but
Yeah.
none of that'll matter if I'm not pitching in. Where am I working the steps? At home?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the test. I mean, sometimes it's not.
All my affairs.
It's uncomfortable at first to realize how unspiritual I am. Spiritual is sometimes action. It's not me
Right.
having lofty thoughts.
So it's like I think it was my second or third year in sobriety. Now don't forget, former gang leader, um, handled shit in a real bad way. I was looking for work and I got a job at Walmart, right, pushing carts because hey, I want to be a contributor to society. So I'm out there pushing carts and they're seeing I'm like I'm in it. Like it's my third year. I'm feeling good right now. I'm living life. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm pushing carts. So they offer me a job, right, in my neighborhood, which I still live in the hood. Um, and they're like, "Do you want to become the customer service manager?" I'm not thinking, right? I'm like, I hear manager, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a
Yeah, that's
manager,
a nice title.
right?
That's nice.
So, customer service manager basically deals with all the angry customers that come in and will need to be. So I got people cussing at me, calling me all kinds of thises and that, and deep down, I'm like, what would my sponsor say right now? Because right now I just want to
Yeah,
haul off and give this boy some skippity paps.
yeah,
But then I remember, my steps, all my affairs. How do I handle this situation?
yeah,
I remember, you know what? This person might have lost their family member this week. This person might be just got fired. This person might be going through some mental issues that I don't know.
yeah,
And now I can know how to handle this. I can approach them with love, kind, and caringness. See, and that's why for me it's so important not to push people away in recovery no matter how they got there. I might have a different opinion about certain things in recovery,
sure.
but you don't need to know that when you're coming to me for help.
No,
I'm not gonna be like, oh, so like and I'm
yeah.
I'm just gonna say it. I was in a meeting the other day, and it was and this kid, he slipped, and he's like, I'm an addict, and I still heard one of the old AA,
Oh man.
you,
Well,
you know,
we got
which
10
is
more
I
years and they're all
understand.
gone. We got 10 more years and they're all gone. We just got to outlive the old. Hey, man,
But
I went
it's
when I was 16. It was World War II vets screaming in my face that I
I
wasn't
mean,
ready.
and that's what I'm trying to tell. I'm like, you're the one that taught us in all of our fairs,
Yeah.
right? Be
Yeah.
kind and caring. Give those so in all my affairs, man. And it's only because of the 12 steps. literally my higher power that has given me and 6 and 7 that took my character defects away, so I didn't have to pap nobody.
Yep.
Because I realized what they were, and I realized I was angry at other people because of what was inside of me, not because of them.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for me.
That's it. I don't know how else you could describe it than the way you just describe it. The first symptom and earmark of a spiritual awakening, Justin's considering other people. And so did your character defects get removed? Kind of, yeah. You didn't shoot anybody at Walmart.
Right. Exactly. Facts.
And those character defects were put out. Now, are we still resentful, fearful? Yeah. But our problems got a lot smaller, and you've helped a lot of people. And it's amazing how little I've considered other people in my life. And then around 7, I started to feel not almost relief, quicker remorse and empathy, because I'm like, I better take it easy. I know when I act that way, I'm really in pain.
Right.
This person's not trying to hurt me.
100%.
Yep. Wow. So let's shop around, see if we have any more questions. Recovery Mike on the switch. I don't know. Ooh, you're getting a lot of congratulations. Can you see the comments, Justin?
I see one. It says, "What's your suggestion on knowing if we feel entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character, or do we truly need to be?" That's a good question. And I, like I said, I'm gonna be honest. That's the only way I know how to be. Absolutely. Right. So when people say "fake it till you make it," I call bullshit. I understand what that means, right? I understand that term, but you will know when you're ready. Back up a little bit, okay? When the May 9th, 2010, that was the day of my last drink. Okay. I had no intentions that morning waking up to stop drinking. None whatsoever. It was like 2:00 in the morning that next day, Sunday morning. It was actually Mother's Day. And I literally heard a voice say, "If you don't stop, you will die." Oh. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm not turning back. And so for me, it did take a while for me to realize, I knew I needed to stop drinking, but the character defects, I still thought, I didn't have, for one. And it's just working the steps. But as I worked the steps, I just knew. Yeah. I just knew. And I don't think that's something that you can do, to be honest. I don't think that you can be like, I'm going to be entirely ready. I think you just know your higher power will work through you through the step, and you will know when you're entirely ready.
That is so interesting to answer it that way, because that makes sense to me. My sponsor, my old sponsor, he passed years ago. He had a similar experience that you described. He heard a voice. He was in jail, and it said, "Bruce, stop drinking." And that phenomenon is like, you hear it at meetings all the time. And I don't know. It's weird. Where is the will involved? Once somewhere where you start the steps and like you described, I don't know. It's not I'm letting something happen to me. It's not that I'm doing it. It's weird, right? Like, I don't know.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing about, that's the big thing when they talk about, like a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening could be many different things. It could be a burning bush, or it could be a whisper, or it could be a continuously slow process, but it's still there. And you'll know it because it's your experience. But it's nothing that you do except for seek it.
Seek it.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
All you got to do is seek it. All you got to do is know you want it. All you got to do is know I want to change. All you got to do is know I'm tired of this. I have step one. I have an issue.
Yeah.
And my life is not going the way it definitely should be. Once you hit that and you're off and running, these things will work with inside of you.
So
people will notice the difference before you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the 3 ingredients before needing the steps: willingness, honesty, at least the attempt to be honest, and an open mind. The 12 steps are being offered in 12-step life. If you're in treatment, you put yourself in a position, you may have went there voluntarily or coerced, where you could be challenged. And it's a therapeutic tactic. You don't see that all the time at 12-step life. It's, hey man, if you're ready, we're here. We're here. We're ready when you are. and then something can happen. Something can happen.
Right.
Fast or slow.
Right.
Here's a question from Jennifer. Can you speak on the challenges of those who are dual diagnosed and are struggling with balancing their mental health and sobriety? Is that a question?
I mean, it is. And like I said, it's just 100. Um, it's extremely hard. So unfortunately, depending on the severity of it, we always do an intake and we always look at the cert. If somebody is severely like has mental issues, we don't at our facility have any clinical people on staff. So we unfortunately can't help. Those people need to be dealing with like constant medical,
Yep.
doctors and psychiatrists and things like that, because it's extremely hard for those people with severe. Now, a lot of us have ADHD, a lot of us have anxiety, a lot of us have depression. We can deal with those. We've had to deal, with people that have schizophrenia, which is really hard to deal with. And other mental issues. So it for people in like sober livings, because another thing you have to remember too is, so we have 6 houses, we have 41 guys, right? We have to be careful of who we put in the houses and keep the house safe, first and foremost, before anything. Do I give up on people? No. Like if somebody comes to me that has mental, I will always try to be there for them. I always pick up the phone, even sometimes if I got to hear talk about why the sky's purple that day. I'll sit there and I'll talk about, yeah, it's purple. All right. I'll sit there and I'll talk to them just to let them know they are being heard, you know,
Yeah.
but that is more for,
Yeah.
for,
Yeah, that's a tailored individual path to
yeah,
recovery that could involve medicine, therapy, and 12-step
yeah,
life, with a licensed professional. Anyone with dual diagnosis or co-occurring condition like that, the support and help is there, but it's going to come a little peer-to-peer, and it's going to come in the form of professional help, and plenty are walking that road. You wouldn't be alone, for sure.
right. Yeah,
That are
no,
sober, happy, and free.
exactly.
And it's their program.
So, and I'm also a peer recovery coach, and so we learn how to kind of sit down with an individual and figure out what the best is for them. Rarely do we ever turn somebody away at Road to Recovery, but there are times where we're like, you know what, I think it's going to be better help, and we reach out to all the facilities, and that's what us as peer recovery coaches also do, is we try to find that tailor-made individual the best path for them.
So we're going to start summarizing what happened here. Justin Calloway in Fort Wayne worked the steps the same way I worked the steps, and we just met tonight and got
Yeah.
to get to know each other a bit. Step 6 and 7, we're summing it up. You've done the first 5 steps. You took an hour of meditation or your best attempt to consider, what did I just do? And who do I want to be moving forward? Can I be the person maybe I'm only whispering to myself? I'm going to end this and conclude this hour with the 7-step prayer, or something I'm comfortable with that acknowledges that I've done this and I've done that, and now I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to start waking up. This is me, but it's not going to remain me. And this is the transition to 7. And the way to consummate this, we're going to start talking about next week, is more action. We're going to make some amends.
Glad I was here for 6 and 7.
Back then, we'll put a wig on you and say, this is Justin's brother, Fred. Fred Calloway. Justin, what would you say to someone tonight that may be struggling and popped on here and they're having a tough time? They're on step 3. What would be some suggestions you'd want to give to someone?
They're on step 3. For one thing that I struggled with is I tried so hard to figure out I knew who my higher power was, but I was trying to figure them out,
Yeah.
right? I was trying to put them in a box. And for me, if you can put your higher power in a box, they're not big enough. Just leave it alone. Let your higher power work through you, right? You can't figure your higher power out. They'll just figure you out. They know you, and they will get you through.
Wow.
Make this a lifestyle. Make it a lifestyle. Give what was given to you. If you've learned something and you've just got an inch of a better life, give that back to somebody. And that's going to keep you sober.
Justin, that's a really fun idea. Do you know what to box means in Latin? Definition. Defines. Definition. To put something into a box and say, that's it. And this is all it is.
Yeah.
They can do that with the idea of a supreme intelligence, or a force. So it's clever. You said that, and it breaks the idea of definition for yourself and your own spirituality. I thought that was really fun. Interesting.
Thank you.
Really interesting idea. Guys, we're wrapping up, and shoot out some last questions.
Yeah.
And check out Hammock Readings. They're on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. They're 1 to 3 minute videos you could share or like. Write us for suggestions. If anything we didn't cover tonight, or you had deeper questions for myself or our guests, feel free to email me. Wow, Mike's on the switch, man.
Look at
Mike. Round of applause.
My God. What a man. What a man.
I've done that, but right? And it was the wrong email. And then our clinical executive director was texting me, Joe, you put the wrong email.
I'm telling you, Mike is coming to Indiana in August, and I can't wait.
Yeah, he's fun.
I'm pinching those cheeks. Yeah.
Recovery Mike. So, we got someone popped in.
Can I show my shirt?
Good evening.
Yeah.
Man, I came in late. I admire and love, respect my boy, Sober OG, a.k.a. Justin.
Hey. Yes, the shirt. Yeah, smoke brisket, not bad. That's
a great handle. What's his shirt?
Hey,
smoke brisket.
It says smoke brisket, not meth.
Oh, wow. It's a clear choice.
It is.
Brisket.
Murrow, what's up, my brother? Much respect. Christina,
are you here? Thanks, Trish. That's a PA person. You had a lot of people come out to see it tonight on this, and it was moving. It was a pleasure meeting you, Justin. And again,
thanks, bro.
If someone wants to reach out to you, you're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you're on the mayor's opioid task force. And that's an honor and a distinction to have your ideas and voices in recovery there. I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you, man. It's so funny. And like the other day, I was talking to somebody, and this literally was the other day. I was like, I'm a former gang member, alcoholic, and I just had lunch with the mayor, the district DA, and all these. I'm like, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Recovery did that.
Yeah, and we got to pull, but we're pulling people in. You're committed to service. And that started, like, I don't mean to tie it back into 6 and 7, but the idea that you had the guts 12 years ago in the past to trust some other person in a 12-step program just open the path that you're there to help other people.
Right.
And I find that beautiful.
Well, and I think that's why they put these steps in order, because I think with 1, 2, and 3, I think my higher power put trust into me to trust them. Because Justin doesn't trust nobody.
Yeah.
But working and using my body as a vessel through my higher power,
it's often and you didn't have to figure out your higher power at step 3. You just had to trust.
Yeah.
That's what you said. That was great advice. Guys, we're going to be back next week. It's steps 8 and 9. Recovery Mike's got a real special surprise for you for next week, 8 and 9. If he remembers, we'll see. We got a great guest coming in. Another round of applause. Thank you again, Justin, for coming out tonight. Guys, reach out to us. If you have an emergency, call 911. If you need our help tonight, check out the website or call the 800 number or your outreach coordinator. Love you guys. Stay sober and be well.